Finally, I concluded my trilogy of movie day by seeing the new Fantastic Four. Man, was that a mistake. We'll start spoiler free, then I'm going to go into spoilers because I'm not taking the time and effort to do a WTF cinema of this thing. I already did it of the first Fantastic Four. I'm not doing it again. So the spoiler free review is. Ugh. Please try again. Actually, please stop trying. Please stop trying. I wish there was a way for me to issue a law for filmmakers. Every superhero gets one origin movie. Doesn't matter if you're rebooting. Doesn't matter if a different company did the origin story. Every superhero franchise, one origin movie, that's it. There is no reason to repeat these origin stories that we know over and over and over again. I don't care how well it was done. Man of Steel did not need to have the origin story in there. It simply didn't. Infants are born in America knowing Superman's origin story. Infants are born knowing Spider-Man's origin story. We don't need it. This film might have had a chance. Maybe. If instead of worrying about the origin story again, they had simply started it in a universe, in a time and space where the Fantastic Four were established, everybody knew who they were, they knew who they were, they knew how to work together as a team, and now you have an entire 90 to 120 minutes to tell me a story about the Fantastic Four. Then you would have had a chance. That's not what happens. The movie spends so long on establishing the characters, establishing their relationships with each other, establishing the accident that gives them powers, that by the time the final conflict happens, it's so rushed because you're out of time. They spend so much time exploring the stuff we already know. Let's go into spoiler territory now. That was your spoiler-free review. It's boring. It's retread. It's just boring and slow, and by the time the action finally kicks in, the movie's over. We're still spoiler-free, I guess. There's no chemistry between any of the characters. The relationships just don't work. The acting is fine, but the chemistry's not there. Alright. So, spoiler. They did try to change up the origin story a little bit. Instead of being a trip to a space station where they got hit by cosmic rays, it's now a trip to a parallel dimension where they get hit with weird energy. Like I care. I know what their powers are. I know they got them through some technobabble. Show me the story, but that's not what happens. And it tries, again, too, there's a jump cut from shortly after they're recovered and their powers are in full effect, Human Torch is just burning and they can't put them out and they don't know what's going on. And Invisible Girl's just going in and out and in and out of visibility. And then it cuts to a year later, now they have control over their powers. And yet it still feels like it takes forever. So we're in spoiler territory now, right? Movie starts out with Reed Richards in the 5th grade, and he forms his lifelong friendship with Ben Grimm as he's working on this teleporting project, right? Ben Grimm, we're supposed to believe, is Reed's best friend. They share 3 scenes together before he becomes the Thing. In those 3 scenes, he only has dialogue in 2 of them. Ben does. And his lines in the 3rd one are mostly, what? Alright, I'll be there in a minute. Like, There's very little interaction between these two characters. We don't see them together for most of the film. And then we're simply told they're best friends. You could have sold me on them being best friends in dialogue, but you chose to show, which a movie should do. Movies should show and not tell. But you couldn't show. The two actors had no chemistry, nor did they have much time together. So if you can't show me their friendship growing, if you can't show me that they're best friends, rather than waste my time with scenes that didn't work, just tell me. Just say, oh, let me get my best friend Ben, and Ben will show up. Freaking origin story, too. Skip the origin story. You desperately want to get the origin story in there? Have Ben, who, is all tortured by being the Thing, that's the ongoing trope that we use with him, have him have a nightmare. In the middle of your movie, that's not an origin movie, have him have a brief nightmare about the energy wave that hit them wherever it came from, be it outer space or another dimension. Have him have that nightmare, and boom! I didn't think I'd use this movie as a positive example ever, but The Incredible Hulk, not the Ang Lee Hulk, but The Incredible Hulk, did a fantastic job of this. It was a reboot, kinda, technically, I suppose. It was not an origin story, because they showed the origin story in just little flashes and hints in like the opening title sequence, and then went on with telling a Hulk story. I mean, technically it was a reboot, but it didn't feel a need to flat out contradict everything in the previous awful movie. It didn't. You can look at those two movies side by side, and there's no reason to say that The Incredible Hulk isn't actually a sequel. Now, it's not. It was a different studio, and they wanted to rebrand it and make it their own. It is a reboot. But you can't tell that just by looking at it. Why couldn't we have done that? This was made by the same company. You can't tell me, apart from possibly very small children, you can't tell me that there was anybody in the audience for Fantastic Four that hadn't seen the previous film. We know their origins. Don't waste my time telling them to me again. And the little kids, they don't need the detailed scientific origin story. They just need them to get the superpowers and use them. So anyway, still spoilerific. In the expedition that ends up lending them their superpowers, Victor Von Doom is separated from the team and believed dead. So they come back to Earth. Now they've got powers. And Victor's believed dead. A year later, another expedition goes to this other dimension and finds Victor. And they bring him back because he's injured. Victor comes back from the other dimension. He is now instantly evil. I apologize for that. Very unprofessional. I'm horrible at this. He is instantly evil. Before, he was just kind of a dick. Now he's evil. And he vows the destruction of Earth to defend his new planet. The one he's been trapped on. I could almost let that go. Because he was hit with some alien goo on the planet. I can almost let that go. But he instantly starts killing people. And going back to his planet where he sets up a way for the Earth to just be utterly destroyed. Okay. Then the Fantastic Four go across, fighting together as a team for the first time ever and defeat him. And he's turned into energy and dies. You know how quick I just said that? That's about how quick it is. The confrontation from Doom being evil to Doom being dead and the movie being over is maybe 20 minutes. Maybe 30 of the 2.5 hours. It goes by very quickly. There's no build-up. There's not even a lot of tension because they don't very clearly explain what he's doing before they try to start stopping him. Like it's, hey, look, he's destroying the Earth by sucking it into this dimension and creating energy. Fight. Like, dude, they didn't even have to come up with a plan. There was no buildup. There was no tension. It was just, oh my gosh, bad thing. Fight it, fight. We win! Now, the special effects were very impressive. The Thing looked great. There were times he almost looked like a man in a rubber suit because the CGI was so realistic. Um, Also, I'm not a Fantastic Four expert, but Doctor Doom had godlike powers. He just walked straight through a military base, making people's heads explode with his mind. And I don't mean that as a metaphor. Like, lots of people's heads just turned into a bloody mess on the wall behind them. Just popping them. As he's walking down the hallway, soldiers are shooting at him. He's stopping the bullets with the shield that he's thrown up. I don't know exactly what Doctor Doom's powers are, but that seemed a bit much. I always thought of Doctor Doom as like the plotter, the planner. I know he has some powers, electricity or something, but I always thought of him as like a genius, not just a god. Because the plan didn't revolve around any kind of plan that he'd set up. It was just, all right, I'm going back to my planet now, and now I've set up this beam using my godlike, unexplained powers, and this beam is sucking Earth into my planet and turning it into energy. Done. And it's the first time they even attempt to work together as a team, and they do so almost flawlessly. Like, all four of them try to attack him at once, and of course, one by one, he swats them away. And then, all right, we got to do this together, team, and they do, and they win. Up until that point in the movie, no two of the Fantastic Four ever cooperated on anything after they got their powers. In fact, they weren't in the same room together since they got their powers. They were rarely in scenes together. Sue and Johnny were. And I don't care about the whole Sue was white, Johnny was black. She was adopted. It's fine. It happens. That was fine. And the performances weren't bad. Ben's human performances were pretty awful, but his performances as the Thing, pretty decent. I liked him. The Thing was just... the movie was just a mess. The pacing was horrid. It's a movie about a team, but they don't spend much time together post-powers. In fact, I'm trying to think. You don't really see the four of them all together until the very end of the movie. Because you see Sue and Reed and Victor. They work together a lot. Then eventually Johnny is brought in. Then for the first expedition, Sue leaves. Then Ben comes in. After that. And they go on the expedition. Sue pulls them back. That's how she gets hit with the wave as they come back after Victor's dead. I guess in that moment they're all four together, but they pretty much black out immediately and are separated and experimented on. Yeah, you don't really get all four of them together until the final fight at the end. Fantastic Four. One at a time. I really wish Sony would just let Marvel have their toy back. Let the Fantastic Four be incorporated into the MCU and be done with it. You can't do it, Sony. You can't make a good Fantastic Four movie. You've tried 3 times now. And you even tried a reboot. And you can't do it. Problem is, if they give it back to Marvel, Marvel's going to have to do an origin story, because you have to. So sick of origin stories for heroes who've already had them. You know what? Doctor Strange is coming out. I vaguely know Doctor Strange's origin, but I've never seen it. I'd like to see his origin story. Saw Ant-Man's origin story. I was fine with that. Not a problem. Let's do that. Spider-Man? No. Fantastic Four? No. Superman? No. Batman? No. And you know what? The Christopher Nolan trilogy of Batman, we're getting way off topic, but the Christopher Nolan trilogy of Batman, it was a good trilogy. The first film, still very slow in the origin phase. Because we know Batman's origin. And he still spent so much of the movie exploring that aspect. The films got great after that, but I still had that problem with the first one. We know these characters' origins. Tell us a story that we don't know. Tell us something that they do. How much fun would it have been to have the Fantastic Four as a team set up facing something threatening the world that you could build up to? Not something that happened in the last 20 minutes of the movie. A story with a villain who had a plan, and then they have to find out the plan. Then they have to come up with a plan to counteract the plan. Right? A story. And this is the same studio that's going to make Deadpool. I have no idea why people are excited for Deadpool. I like Deadpool as a character. I think Ryan Reynolds is actually the right actor to play the part. I'm really worried this movie's going to be bad. Anyway, I've rambled more than long enough. Don't see Fantastic Four. Don't give them your money like I did. Just tell yourself that Fantastic Four never existed as a movie franchise. So disappointing.
Hi, I'm Luke Bryan, 2-time CMA Entertainer of the Year. If I ever learn how to read, I'm going to read The Great Platypus Caper by Jeff Hillary because I believe in supporting fine literature. I'm Luke Bryan. Hi.